Hello and welcome to the easternKicks podcast, a regular magazine programme about East Asian film led by me, Andrew Heskins, founder and grandmaster of easternKicks.com, and James Mudge, our leading writer.
Hey up.
Each episode we'll be taking a look at the latest films, news and festivals, often chatting to filmmakers and stars along the way. Welcome to the latest episode. This time it's a bit of a Mongolian special edition as I talk to Zoljargal Purevdash about her debut film with Only I Could Hibernate. We're also joined by regular easternKicks contributor Amarsanaa Battulga. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me, Andy.
Thank you so much. And this is where we normally say, but first let's get on to the important question. But we're recording this a bit early, so I don't know about you, James, but I'm nursing a lovely coffee rather than a normal...
No, I've got the Ardmore. Malt whiskey, so. But I wake up.
You're keeping it true to the brand.
Well, I wake up about 4 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning. So now because
now it's that would mean for you it's the
sun. I wake up
evening.
with the sun, so yes, it's already past the yard arm, so I'm fine.
So this episode. So firstly, I spoke to Zoljargal Purevdash over Zoom about her film with Only I Could Hibernate. Occasionally distracted by her 3-month-old daughter who was in the next room with her mum. So let's listen to that now.
За өстрийн шалгалтын дээр танаагаас ганц л өгдөө явуулдаг үргээ.
Бассан. Ба бодлогоос түрээгийнхэн заасаа хичээл өгөөд ангийнхч ойлгох. Өлзөөтэй. Чи өмнө физик олимпиад орж илв. Энэ хагас өдөр аудиторч нэрмжтэй олимпиад болно. Чи орох юм уу?
Hello.
Hi Zoljargal. It's lovely to talk to you.
Yeah, it's lovely to talk to you too.
Thank you so much for sparing a bit of time to chat about the film. I've been to Ulaanbaatar. It's probably about 20 years ago now.
Oh, yeah.
It was part of the. So I was doing the sort of Trans-Mongolian, Trans-Siberian thing, you know, and actually coming from Beijing and going the other way to Moscow.
Wow.
And as part of that, we did a stay out in a yurt. It was a bit of a different context to your film. So this was with a family who were in, I guess, one of the sort of reasonably close national parks. So they did sort of homestay, and they had horses. But it's one of the things when I was watching a film was sort of like kind of remembering that fairly kind of fond experience of a few days in a year. Let's get on with the questions.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell me kind of how the story came about?
Mm-hmm. I grew up in the Yurt district area of Ulaanbaatar, and I still live there. And it's area there is no running water or this heating system. So Ulaanbaatar is one of the coldest capital, and we reach -35 easily in every winter. So people need to burn coal or something to survive this brutal winter. And in the last 30 years, we have this big migration to the Ulaanbaatar city. There's nomads. It's no longer so easy to be nomad in the countryside, and people are looking for better lives. So they come to the Ulaanbaatar, and they come to the Ulaanbaatar with their yurt, and they build their yurt out of the city. Then this yurt district is expanding. And now 70% of the, citizens of Ulaanbaatar lives in this yurt district area. Not everybody lives in the yurt. When they come to the city, if they make some money, they build their houses. Then they make good money. They buy apartments that has running water, So this area. So almost 70% of the, 60-70% of the people now burns coal every winter. And that causes very big air pollution issue. And in winter of 2016 to 2017, we had this demonstration that is called Against Air Pollution. And it's really the time that citizens of Ulaanbaatar started to become aware that air pollution is really bad for health.
Yeah.
And what people did was demonstration. And what made me so much get offended was they wanted migrated nomads to go back to the countryside. They were so harsh on them, and at the same time on us, for burning coal. But as a person who really comes from here, none of us burn the coal to poison the other side of the city.
No.
It's just only way we afford to survive in this winter. So when people start to do the demonstration with very, aggressive slogan or aggressive attitude, I get offended. So I was surprised that, oh my God, they don't understand the real reason of the air pollution. It's a poverty. We breathe air. We don't breathe smoke. We breathe poverty. So the another side of the city don't understand it. So what I could do. So I wanted to make film that could understand that we're not doing it on purpose. So I wanted to make this very minimal, simple story of such energetic teenage boy who's looking for something to burn on his stove every night. and let the other part of the city to understand it. It's really caused by poverty, and I really wanted to ask them not to be too harsh on us. They could be very harsh to the adults, but there's many kids who are living in this situation and who also want to get out of it. So the first script was really on that, and it really portrayed the problem, poverty. So boys looking for something to burn. Then I started to polish the script, because I don't just want to complain about the problem. I want to suggest the solution of it. And for me, I luckily went to the really nice high school. And I love physics, and I loved going to physics competition. And when I was 15, my dream was just going to abroad and become educated. And really, just like in my movie, I wanted to become who makes good money, and we really wanted to make my mommy happy. So I gave him my dream when I was 15, and I went to. I end up getting scholarship to learn film in Japan. And I went to Japan and I become educated, and that really saved me from, falling into the poverty, So I want to portray the problem, poverty, and as a person who experienced the magic of great education, I want to suggest education as the solution of it. But, good education is not affordable for every kid who are living in this vulnerable situation. So I realized that I need to talk more about education equality here. After, if I want to solve air pollution, it's really what? But so this film turns into the journey of looking for better education to get out of poverty, and it really turned into different kind of film from from its starting point.
But I mean, and it is a very, it's interesting because your film is very specifically about that situation in Ulaanbaatar. But it is a very universal story, that in the whole world, to a lesser degree myself, I grew up in a council house, and my parents kind of strove for me to get a higher education so that I could get on better in life. So it's something that I think everyone can relate to, absolutely. And it's such a lovely, and and you do deal with it so well.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. And the 15 years old kid, wherever they live, whatever situation they are, young people, these teenagers, they always have this big hope of they could get out of it, whatever situation they are. I think it's a beauty of a young person. And, I don't know. I think we all feel we can change this world when we were young, So, if only I could hibernate is this really, if I say this story in one word, it's a story about hope. Keeping your hope alive, still, burning your hope, while you have nothing to burn in your stove, but you need to keep your
keep your hope alive.
Yeah, keep your hope alive and
Burning.
keep your hope burning. Yeah. So I think that's why it is connecting with, any culture, it's really connecting with people wherever they are, whatever they go through, this keeping your hope alive in any situation. So I thought hibernate is connecting with audience in that way, maybe.
So, considering that you put some of your own experiences in there with your, with you having excelled at maths and physics, what drew you to filmmaking from the much more science and maths based stuff that you were obviously talented at?
I loved watching movies since I was very little, but I never dared to say that I want to become an artist, because art is something, considered as something that never makes money. And I'm the oldest of the family. So I have that responsibility of I have to take care of my mom and my sibling. But when I entered that very wonderful high school, and there were this drama club. My daughter is crying. Then I actually went to that good high school to learn physics, but there were drama club. It's this private high school. In public high school, there isn't any club activities. So I went to there and I'm so much in love with art. And I really wanted to become a filmmaker, but, I couldn't ask my mom. But in the year I graduated, I got selected to get the scholarship. And it was a full scholarship. So I told my whole family, I won't get any money from you. I'll just go to Tokyo and I'm going to learn art. So nobody couldn't stop me. And the reason I wanted to become a film director is my mom had a little corner shop in the yurt district. And there's we had many kind of, customers. It's mostly our neighbors, the mostly the people who migrated to the city. And so they come to my mom's shop. Sometimes they borrow some food. And my mom is a very kind person, and she always lends. So all my neighbors and customers, they love my mom. So while I'm helping my mom in her little shop, they come to my mom's shop and start to talk about, wait a minute, oh my God.
I can hear it. At this point, Zoljargal is completely distracted by her daughter.
Oh my God, my youngest is 3 months.
Dear.
He's crying. Okay. And my mom is with her. And my neighbors, they start to trust my mom so much. So they come into my corner shop and they tell their lives, how they live, what they do. And I unconsciously becoming, story bank of what's happening around the place I live. And once there were alcoholic comes to my shop, and he come with very small boy, and he bought vodka and buy any food to the kid. And I was kid at the moment, but I was, I feel very sorry about that little boy. And I thought, he go home and he watch something on TV. And I wanted to give happiness to that boy. And I thought, oh my God, I want to become someone who makes something nice on the TV and, gives hope or showing, giving him some nice feelings through, through TV or through this screen. So that was the moment I wanted to become director. I wanted to become someone who make this content or movie. Then while I was a kid, I also loved watching movies. And I felt a lot of, nice feelings. I usually get a lot of nice feelings from movies. So I just thought he could get something from the movie. So it all mixed and happened when I was in a high school, and I decided to become a filmmaker.
Wow.
Yeah.
So considering that you are drawing on your own experiences, you changed the protagonist to being male. Was there a reason for doing that? For having it be a boy rather than a girl?
Yes. Because it's a story about an education. And Mongolia was under Soviet for 70 years. And when we become republic, there's all this societies, everything is fall down, things are crazy. And we let our girls educate more because we thought boys will find a way to eat. So let's educate our daughters. So we have this big education gap between men and women in our society. I think also maybe it could be very cultural, we hate to see our daughters, being weak or, being weak and being, being under the pressure of men. I don't know. We hate to see that. So we let our daughters to educate, and we love them to be strong. So this big education gap we have, men are less educated than women. And now, I think I support this gender equality, and I think letting our boys to, letting them out of school is also very, very not good. And uneducated men are causing a lot of, pain to women too,
Yeah.
So I want my main boy to be my main character to be a boy, just to show the boys are fighting for education. I don't want to give up education, anymore, because it's always our brothers who give up education and doing their best for their sisters. So I wanted to stop in my own society. So that's why I want to talk louder about the boys' education more than, that's why I chose the main character as a boy. Also, I want, it will be really different situation if the 15 years old girl don't have nothing to burn, or 15 years old boy have nothing to burn in the middle of winter. What they could do is very different. So I want to portray more on these air pollution things, So that's why I want these, people very aware about, we burn about coal, but at the same time we burn wood. We just burn a big forest that is near Ulaanbaatar, but nobody talks about it, and it's mostly illegal. And 220,000 households are burning many woods every year, and nobody wants to talk about it. So it must be a boy, and boy must go to the forest, and I want to portray that illegal logging. And, that one sack of coal is very heavy. So this kind of many reasons I chose my protagonist as a boy, not a girl, while giving many my own story.
And can we talk about the casting? Because your lead there, Battulga, is great as Ozzy, but yeah, all your young actors are great. So how did you find them? Were they professional or?
Yeah, and they are all non-actors, and except the sister's character, other kids are never been to any movies. It's their first time being on movie, and I want to, make this film as real as it could. So I did a casting call for the kids who only lives in Yurt district or who has experienced life of living in the Yurt district. And I did put the post on the Facebook and asked the kids to send me the 3-minute videos. Then I received many videos, and I watched the videos and called the kids who I felt has a similar energy or similar this character. So I called the kids and did the real audition and meeting in person and giving them the one scene, and they do it. And so I chose the boy who I imagined in the script. I chose the boy as near as him, and also very, flexible, talented kid that I could work with. So I did the casting, and we did the two weeks of rehearsal together, and we play a lot. We did a lot. We talked about the script a lot, and I didn't treat them as a kid. I talked with them very honestly why I am making this film and what I want to change through this film, or what I want to, become this film to the beginning of discussion that could lead to the change. So then the kids, they feel all these social issues very near to them. They breathe this terrible air, and every winter their siblings suffer from this air, and these medical hospitals are terrible, and they also experience a lot of these alcoholics in their, streets, and many child neglect abuse. It's very near to their classmates, so they feel all it really near to them. So when I told them we could do something to solve it, they trusted this purpose of this film. So they become super passionate. They all this dialogue. They always, remembered all the dialogue. They're on set. It's really, kids are very honest, and when they become serious about something, you can't stop them. So they completely become the character. And I wanted to set this very open environment that they could tell what they felt about this dialogue. They're gloating or about the scene. I just give them this freedom. So they start to talk. I don't feel like I want to tell this dialogue this way. Or, we don't listen this music. We listen this, we don't wear this gloat. We wear this. So I'm like giving this freedom of them to change into the character. So it was really beautiful. Their hard work, their performance really, call the spirit of this film.
And I think, and I think what you do, you capture a great warmth and naturalism from them, and you think about other directors that do similar things with non-professionals, like people like Ken Loach or Chang Yimou, or Not One Less. Sometimes there can be a bit of awkwardness there, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But what you've got here, particularly with the kid actors, is just lots of naturalism and warmth coming through from their performances. So the film is a co-production. Can I ask you, how did you go about financing the film, and was it difficult to get that together?
Oh, Yeah, I met my French co-producer at the Talents Tokyo. It's this development program for Asian young directors, and I met him in 2017, and I recontacted him in 2021 when I decided to shoot the film with the budget I found, and he comes on board, and we are selected for the French funds for the post-production stage, and we finished it. So funding is always super challenging. It was always difficult, and yeah, so I knocked a lot of doors and, here in Mongolia, and I found private companies, non-governmental organizations, and some international organizations that runs in Mongolia. And I asked also money from my friends. I did the fundraising event. Yeah. Oh my God. She's going crazy. Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's interesting because I think it's fair to say that a lot of Mongolian co-productions, they might have the director and cast from Mongolia, but a lot of the technical side of things might be from the international co-producer. How did you, was that something you kind of deliberately tried to avoid, that you had more of a local team on this?
That was not on purpose to avoiding them. It's just what it happens, And the shooting happened during COVID-19,
right?
And it was really difficult to bring these international talents to Mongolia. It's during COVID, and also the budget I found was really not that enough for the shooting, doing it that vast way. So it's just really happened the way it is.
And also kind of on the international side, you've got Johanny Kurte on the soundtrack. How did you find him? I've not, I know he's kind of French born, but very immersed in traditional Mongolian music and the artistry of throat singing and all that. But I'd not heard Mongolian beatboxing.
From the beginning of the script writing, I wanted to use throat singing on this film just to show this juxtaposition of tradition and modernity, that is happening now in Ulaanbaatar, just giving this feeling of, migrated nomad who has all this traditional music in him, but come into the city and mixed with the kids who, in the Yurt district, boys now only, they really love hip hop music. So I want to give this mix feelings. And Johnny is he created this wonderful album of throat singing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I contacted him. So I went to the city opening, and I love that city. And I went to, so I write to him an email, and in 2017, but I couldn't hear back. So I tried to write him again in 2022 when I started the editing. And this time I tried to contact him from his very near connection, and he wrote me back. So I show him the rough cut, and I told him why I am making this film. And he's really specialized with Mongolian traditional music. He's an ethnomusicologist, and he's married to Mongolian, and he speaks Mongolian super well. He's almost Mongolian. He loved Mongolia so much, So when I told him why I am making this film, and it was the issue that he also worried and cares a lot. So he told me, in any case, I will help you and I will write the music for your film. And luckily, we got the grant from Paris Regional Fund and, CNC, the National Fund of France. So we become able to do the music recording in France, all the music mixed there.
Right. Okay, so I think my time is probably close to kind of coming up for this, and I'm sure there's somebody else to kind of come on and talk to you. But just very briefly, are you working on anything next? Have you got anything in pre-production or writing? Or
oh yes, I started writing my next project, and I'm very encouraged that audience of If Only Hibernate, they were laughing at the at some scenes that I put on purpose, some satirical scenes. So I get encouraged that maybe I could write some dark comedy. So now I'm started writing dark comedy.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for talking to me. I think thank you again for your time. Been lovely to talk to you, and I could have quite easily have talked to you for a bit longer, but that's lovely. Thank you so much. I'll quit out of this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Та бид хорыг үлдээгээд яв. Би дөнгөцөө Улсын олимпиад орно гэж танд хэлж байгаа сте. Тэгээд хүн шиг ажилд ороод зөндөөх цалиаваад таныг стажик гэж жаргааш тээжээ.
Токигийн соёл Harvard. Улсын олимпиад орно гэдэг бол тийм амар зүйл биш. Чи маш их хичээж бүх цагаа зориулах хэрэгтэй. Чадах уу?
Атаа бидний эсэмвэ осмос цас.
Хага нүүрс дууссан байгаа шүү.
Та хоёр үеч хичээлдэж тэрэ.
Андаа нэг ажил хийх үү?
Ага ойрд модон жоод чичилж явахгүй байгаа.
Чамаг ийм газар ийм их удгачуудтай байж байгааг харах. Дэндүү хайран байна. Чи одоо юу гэдэг юм бэ? Хийн чи. Би багш нь байна.
Бүгдээрээ баг байсан ч бас. Өвчин хичээд танаа төрөхгүй, дарахгүй, гоё ихгүй юу?
Amarsanaa, you've seen the film as well, haven't you? If Only I Could Hibernate.
Yes, I have. Last year, when it was shown in Cannes, I wasn't at Cannes, but I saw it through a screener. Yeah.
As with my interview, and she's been on record quite a lot, one of the most interesting things I found about it is that it starts in a very different place, that it was really kind of her rallying call against the way that those in the yurt district are kind of demonised for burning fuel, which they have to because of the fierce winters that you guys have in Ulaanbaatar, but it became something very, very different about the sort of education and getting out of that side of things.
Yeah, the film, I think it had a huge significance for Mongolia. I'm sure you talked about this in the interview as well. It's the first Mongolian feature to go to Cannes. And then there was a huge cause for celebration for all the cinephiles back home. But and for me, I think it also personally, especially, it has a huge significance as a social project, so to speak, not just as something aesthetic, but also its social value of it. And I say that because I myself also grew up. I was born and grew up in the Yurt district, or Gir district, as we call it, right? And to see that represented on the screen, it is, in this realistic way, at least for me, it was the first. And yeah, the whole theme and the subject matter of the film is very contemporary, which is also, and it's urban, it's in the city, which is also something, now it's becoming more common, but it was at one point very rare for Mongolian films, especially ones that went abroad. You usually expect horses, camels, or falcons. A lot of like human-animal connection and rural countryside life, which does exist. In Mongolia, but it's nice to see get something fresh, right?
And I think, for me, and I like I said to Zoljargal, it's that kind of urbanness actually kind of makes it speak a little bit more to people in different countries. That their eyes find it, it is very different, but also that sort of it is something that we can perhaps in some ways better associate with, and the plight of the young man, the boy in the film, and wanting to reach for that, that it's something a little more transferable in that sense. But yes. it was interesting as well that and that's just kind of partly what I want to talk about, and you've already picked up on, is this: we don't tend to see many Mongolian films other than the ones that are co-productions. This one was a co-production with the Institut Français, and it's quite uncommon. And what we do tend to see tends to be more of the sort of nomadic side of things. I think kind of back a few years ago we had films like Black Milk. And also, if we see it from elsewhere, that was a German co-production, I believe, or we see this idea of Mongolia that I think was really well satirised. I think it's one of the things I loved about that film most, was in Striding into the Wind, where you see what is almost a kind of colonial take on it, this idea of this noble savage of the nomad, which is kind of more than a little insulting. And I thought what Striding into the Wind did very well was to really kind of take the piss out of that take on things. But we don't tend to see all the other cinema that's coming out of Mongolia, so I think it would be really kind of interesting to chat about what else there is going on that we don't see.
Yeah, this is really a good entry point to start the discussion, because like the two films you just mentioned, Black Milk, the director, oh my god, the name is skipping my mind right now, but the director is based in, I think, in Germany, have been based there for quite a number of years now, I think. And then we have those, like, I guess you could call diaspora directors. You have those, and then their films obviously travel, and then Striding into the Wind is, well, technically, like the director is a Chinese filmmaker, and the film is actually set in Inner Mongolia. So in Inner Mongolia, of course, we have lots of films, but it's usually talked in the context of Chinese or Sinophone cinema, right? And there isn't really much discussion of like pan-Mongolian cinema, so to speak. I wish there would be soon, but yeah. But for us, like Mongolia, the country itself, it is really true that the very few films, first of all, travel outside, and ones that, how do I say this? Yeah, the ones that do travel are usually always co-production. And there was another example from last year, City of Wind. This is also first feature for Mongolia to go to Venice in the Horizon section. And that one is also a co-production between 4 countries headed by France and Mongolia. And the interesting thing, like a few months ago, a programmer from one of the festivals in Europe contacted me, and they want to know more about what's more popular in Mongolia, what kind of films. And they said they weren't really interested in what the French were doing and what they would embrace. And I'm interested in something more popular. And hearing that, I was like, oh, that's interesting how other people are seeing this filmmaking. Like, they say, oh, is this what the French are doing, or what the French are doing with Mongolians, right? So, yeah, but I will say that at least with these two films, they were popular in Mongolia, especially the Zoljargal's film, If Only I Could Hibernate, had just finished a historic, long run in the cinemas in Mongolia, over 3 months. It just concluded last week, I believe. And yeah, that was over 3 months. So And the other film had a slightly different strategy, partly because of their Mongolian financiers. Mongolia is one of the biggest streamers here, and I guess they had some kind of requirement that so they only showed the film in cinemas for a week, and then it went on the platform immediately, which is a very curious strategy. So yeah, these two films were popular in Mongolia. That cannot be said for some other films that went to cinemas, went to festivals abroad. One example is like Batbay Chaksum's Out of Paradise. Now this film won the Shanghai Film Festival, like the top Golden Goblet Award, and still a bit of a big deal, right? It's like one of the so-called like the type A kind of festivals in the world. And then, but if you ask Mongolians in Mongolia about this film, like most people will have never heard of this film ever. Because I don't think it ever had any screenings, or maybe it had one or two in Mongolia, but they basically didn't have any footprint in the country itself. And the director, again, is someone who's based in Switzerland, who has been making films there for a while, many years now. And yeah, so the other films, so what are people watching in Mongolia? Most of the time in cinemas, it's usually the biggest films are action blockbusters and comedies. All local ones, and that's also an interesting thing. I think in Mongolia, the biggest films, we don't really talk about box office. There's no statistics on that. We always talk about admissions, like number of tickets sold. So the films with the highest admission number are all foreign, all local titles. That's, I think, very interesting. There's lots of discussion about how local films are bad. People are not watching it. Many people complain, but if you look at the numbers, then those are the films that the people are watching the most, actually. And if you get into more specifics, I have this statistic here that I looked up earlier. There is this franchise, I guess, action franchise in Mongolia called Zora, and I wouldn't really go into this. I haven't seen the two of the films. I only seen one of them, and it's about basically a bunch of guys, shooting each other, which completely does not exist in Mongolia. I've never seen a gun in my life in Mongolia. And yeah, basically, and then this political intrigue, corrupt officials, and then this danger of our neighbor like China, our corrupt officials making deals with China. We must go there, save people, whatever. This kind of deal, pretty common stuff, I guess. And this film is still showing in cinemas, the third installment. And the opening weekend, it sold 67,000 tickets. And to compare with that, Dune, the second part of Dune, sold 9,000 tickets. So that really pales in comparison. And I would assume Dune is, pretty big film, right? So that's the way it kind of compares.
I mean, so I think the sort of, I guess the exception of a film that did travel but was a local production was The Salesgirl, which made it to New York Asian Film Festival a couple of years ago, and then also played Udine Forest Film Festival last year. But that's kind of I think one of the rare exceptions that's made it through.
Yes, that's exactly right. That is, I think right now, the only exception I can think of, honestly, at least from in the recent memory. Sales Girl is 100% Mongolian production, made by Nomedia Pictures, and actually, ironically, it didn't start this journey very well. It was released in 2021, I think, in Mongolia, in October during COVID. So it couldn't go to cinemas. It went directly to VOD platforms, and then I think maybe there's some marketing mishap or something. People, if you based on online, reactions, it was almost universally panned in Mongolia. But then it went to Osaka Asian Film Festival in March the next year. The lead actors won an award there, and then it's really started traveling from there, as you said, to New York Asian Film Festival. It also went to Vizul and won the Golden Wheel, I think, over there. It's won quite a lot of awards, and I think for me personally, I would think that the reason for its success is, first of all, again, just as with If Only I Could Hibernate and City of Wind, this is also a contemporary coming-of-age story. It's set in the city. It doesn't show anything, any even inkling of the countryside or the rural subjects. And also it's not just about that setting, but also the protagonist is a college freshman, this girl who is discovering her own, sexual liberation, I guess, in a sense. And that aspect of it also is super new for Mongolian cinema, even for most of us, I think. Most of us locals, I mean. So, that I think led to its success quite well. And it was shown in theaters, in cinemas in quite a few countries, I think. At least it was shown I think, in France and Japan.
Where do you think Mongolian cinema might be going then? I mean, I feel that we're probably still not going to see a lot of these other films that aren't co-productions making it to other film festivals. But but seeing perhaps more of these now that there is more acclaim coming towards these co-productions. Perhaps we will see more of those. Where do you think? Where do you see it might head next?
I mean, it's not really mutually exclusive, right? I think both directions will continue to develop. The only problem with the co-production and this international festival route is that it's not super stable, I guess. Maybe these filmmakers, like these two filmmakers who made Hibernate and City of Wind, both women, by the way, was very also rare for Mongolia. Usually our famous filmmakers are all male directors. And when they made these two films, and then my biggest fear is that we're not going to have films that go to Cannes and Venice again until they make their next films, and who knows how long that will take, right? I mean, obviously these two were their features, and it's so it took like 7. I think for Hibernate it took 7 years from beginning to completion. Right? Obviously it will be shorter than that, hopefully, but still a number of years, right? So that's my biggest fear. And these big films that don't really go out anywhere else, I think they'll still continue to be made, definitely, because they're making money, it's popular, and in the country, again, from between the last 6, well, not including this year, between 2017 to 2023, if you look at the top 10 films with the highest admission numbers, 9 of them are local titles. And the number 1 is actually, ironically, a foreign film. It's Avatar: The Way of Water. I have no idea why it was so popular. It's really, really popular. And then the following 9 films are all Mongolian films, like comedies, or historical dramas, or contemporary dramas, and action films. This stuff. Yeah. And then again, none of them went. As far as I know, none of them went to any festival abroad. And there may have been cases where the producers of the individual film take their film and show them in for example, take it to US and show it to Mongolians there, host a screening, just 1 or 2 screenings, stuff like that. But actual theatrical run, none of them had that. So but not just these films. There's also these Mongolian action films, but do travel outside. It's just very rare. I remember last year or 2 years ago, I might be forgetting, there was a film called Aberrants. It is, I think, technically a co-production with the US, but the people who are working in the production company in the US are also mixed. A lot of Mongolians who are also work there. I think that's my understanding. That film, it's a psychological thriller, horror, I guess. I haven't seen the film. I haven't been able to. And that film went to South by Southwest, and it's also the first Mongolian film to go there. And whenever a Mongolian film goes into festival, it's usually the first to go there, to these big festivals, especially. To put things into perspective, Mongolia, we don't really make a lot of films. I just got the statistic this morning that last year we made 37 features that were shown in cinemas. The streaming is another deal. A lot of the stuff on streaming is hard to call even film, right? But the theatrical stuff, there's been 37. It's a low number, but for Mongolians, it's a country of 3.6 million, I think. I don't know if it's reached 3.7 million. But for that number, I think it's quite a high amount of features, local films, right? Yeah, and then also an interesting development you see is that those films that go to these festivals, Venice, Cannes, and then they come back home, I guess, in a sense, and have their local premieres. And sometimes there's divide. Some people, although a minority, don't really like how this development is going. There was a review in one of the big daily newspapers in Mongolia, written by a scholar, a university lecturer, I guess. Quite a controversial review about how these films, we shouldn't portray like Mongolia's poverty. We shouldn't be selling this, talking about this out in the open and stuff like this. And obviously, a lot of people are against it. Some people were for it, and so yeah, the reception is varied. It's mixed. I think that's in a way healthy, I guess. But I personally that wasn't even a review for me. That was just venting or something.
But just something out of interest, talking about the reception of these films. I mentioned this to Andy before. I was at Glasgow Film Festival's industry program last month or so. We had you had presentations from sales agents, including the Scottish company who's releasing the Hibernate film and everything. And basically, what he said, they showed a trailer to it, and it's sort of very slow. You didn't really hear any dialogue. It was all sort of what I had no idea if it's the original soundtrack or not, but it was cut in a very specific way. And then the guy afterwards basically said, well, it's very similar to that film, A Yak in the Classroom. Which number one, it's not a Mongolian film, right? And number two, no. I mean, I haven't seen Hibernate, and all I've seen is that trailer, but I said that to Andy, and you were very clear that they have nothing in common with each other whatsoever. But that was their big sales pitch. They were pitching into exhibitors and stuff as well. It's very similar. He didn't just say if you liked it. He said it's a similar film. But and I think that's part of the problem. When people see Mongolian films, as we said before, it's really a very specific type only of Mongolian films that you actually get coming out here. And I worry a bit that it's the same with some other countries, a bit of a vicious circle. Once that kind of film gets into a festival, then filmmakers make more of that kind of film. And it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. We certainly see that a lot.
But I mean, and exactly, and it's even kind of bizarre because it's actually not that sort of film as well. So that's kind of been sold as something.
There's no animals in the trailer or anything. It's just I honestly didn't even see the guy.
There is a dog in the film. There is a dog in Hibernate.
It's not in the classroom, is it?
It's not in. No, it's not in the classroom.
Anyway, I just might mention out of interest because I think that's always not just for Mongolia. I think for a lot of countries which maybe don't have like a massive commercial output that we see around the rest of the world, there's always not a danger, I would say, but there is. You do see that same process, I think, where they just focus on it.
I think in part it does come back to what we were talking about before about that we only see a lot of these co-productions and what I was saying about some of the approach of those co-productions and it's been interesting about these last couple of films like Hibernate, like City of Wind that are much more urban. But it presents this side of Mongolia that isn't as you were saying earlier, Amarsanaa. It's like it is true for some, but not true for many. This the way that I think that a distributor will choose to portray certain aspects that aren't really. That aren't really true of the film even, and actually for a lot of people are probably a turn off for what could be a wider audience for something like Hibernate, definitely. But it's being wrapped up as something that a lot of people would that actually is just a massive turn off, that they might be expecting something that, for instance, that like a lot of these other co-productions are very art house and and abstract, where that's not what Hibernate is at all. But,
that's certainly how they were making it look and sound. And I completely agree. It's lazy marketing or lazy pitching, but also in a way which doesn't massively really necessarily even help the film get out there. Because I think, especially in the UK, I mean, you already have the subtitle virus that gets rid of most of the normal audience, regular mainstream audiences. Then you get to, it's clearly not like a flashy film. It's from a country some people might not be familiar with. So I don't see the point in trying to wrap it up, because I think the people who would go and watch that in the cinema would be invested enough to probably prefer to think they were going to see something different. Like, for me, I'm not a big fan of like the animal types of films and everything like that. So if it generally was another yak in a classroom,
even yak in a classroom, the yak in the classroom in Yak in the Classroom is not a big feature of
not at all.
Well, there you go.
It's because again, it's been sold, and that's been, and it's the name of the film, fine, and it's a bit of fun, but actually, lots of people would be disappointed because they'd be expecting more of an animal film.
Whereas I'd be put off seeing it because I think it's an animal film. So yeah, I completely appreciate that. When you're marketing or trying to get exhibitors to pick up slightly more niche films.
I don't know.
I don't think this helps, though. I don't think this helps.
No, and I don't know who it's actually trying to appeal, because I don't think... I think, taking, If Only I Could Hibernate as an example, a very specific example, I think if you present it as what it is, which is a sort of social realist kind of film, might... You could play it up for being a bit Ken Loach. You could play it up for being a bit like Changi Mao's Not One Less. It's got those kind of aspects to it, but to make it feel like to kind of really try and make it feel a lot more art house is not doing it a service at all. And I don't know, like I say, I don't know who that's actually going to appeal to, because apart from the fact that I don't know who really wants to see those sort of movies. In a sense, it doesn't.
You know what I just realized? Ironically, I think Giant Mo's Not One Less is a bit closer to Lunana Yak in the Classroom. A teacher goes around there. But I do agree with everything that she just said. Yeah, it's. And speaking of Ken Loach, actually, she mentioned in interviews herself that she's, influenced by Ken Loach's films as well for her approach. Yeah, I don't get how this marketing logic works.
Not very well. I think is the bottom line. I mean, we'll see how it does in the UK and everything, but
I think without wanting to be a little bit dismissive, but it's got an interesting release that it's coming out very slowly. It's not playing a lot of venues at once. So I don't. I don't. You can't really build up much momentum if something is only playing in a few places and then next over several weeks.
It's a new company, and it's a very small company. It's got, is it Concave, Convex, something like
Conic.
that? Conic, that's it, thank you.
Yeah.
Conic. So maybe they're either don't have the resources to put stuff out, or they're just or maybe they're trying something different. I'm not sure. But yeah, I agree if it rolls out, unless probably they've got some Screen Scotland support and BFI support, so maybe their release pattern is linked to that, and they're not expecting it to be like a normal release, and they're happy to do. The way they talked about it, they were quite open to like one-off bookings and things like that, rather than cinemas taking it on for like a week of engagements. So in fact, they were quite keen on that, which is fine. Yeah, sure.
Which is it's probably it maybe will be best for the film as long as they're at the right venues. It's
just seems like more work, but I guess it's all tied up in what agreement they had when they bought the film, or if they're working on a share and a minimum guarantee on the film. No idea what they got with it, but just can't imagine that's going to generate much money. Anyway, so it is interesting. It is interesting though. But yeah, if they go out there really just pitching it like a yak film, then I don't think that'll help it.
No.
I'm surprised that some of these other films don't come to the streamers, though. Me and Andy do our regular, easternKicks Picks podcast, and a lot of the stuff which turns up on Amazon and Netflix, we are seeing increasingly more. I don't like the word. It's more like a diverse range of countries around Asia, which we're seeing stuff getting picked up from. Some of which is clearly not that it doesn't have any rhyme or reason to it, but some of it is quite random in a number of films. They're picking up from different countries, everything. So I'm quite surprised that none of the the kind of action films you're talking about, which are on streamers in even locally, I'm quite surprised some of them haven't turned up here, or something like Salesgirl, which I haven't seen, but I've heard of it. I'd be surprised. I mean, if something is very, very sort of locally themed, that's fair enough. But anything like action, I'm surprised something more of it hasn't, or even just like one or two have gone through to test the water. Because especially recently after COVID and after all the actor strikes and everything, there's been a huge upswing in terms of foreign language films from around the world turning up on Netflix, Amazon, everything. So I am quite surprised. But that film, I just looked up there, we were talking that Aberrance when you were talking about, and that's Raven Banner in the US. It was released in October. So that'll probably turn up on Shudder at some point.
I think I saw some news piece about how it hit some streaming service, I think. It came out, right, I think. Yeah.
It came out late last year in the US. It hasn't screened anywhere here in the UK, or it's not on streamers here in the UK. But hopefully that'll make it out, because that sounds pretty... It would be very interesting. I'd never seen a genre film, anything from Mongolia, and maybe gradually, if a few more films leak through, whether it's action, horror, then you just need one or two of them to do reasonably well, and then maybe we'll see a flood suddenly of those ones coming through, or if the government or the production companies work out deals with the streamers to supply the product. So it'll be interesting to see. But I'm still surprised. I wouldn't say none, because we might just have missed it, but very, very little of it's been coming on the streamers anyway.
And I would also love to see more genre stuff go out of Mongolia. Not necessarily because I like the films specifically, but there could be more diversity, right? And and I actually mentioned this other than streaming. Every time I talk to basically Mongolian filmmaker or producer and stuff, I basically recommend them, like, if you make a genre films, especially action films and stuff, or comedies, And most people think these are the films that only play locally. Most Mongolian filmmakers think, and they have no way to go to festivals because those are all high and mighty art house auteur film stuff. But now I try to recommend them, there are these fantastic film festivals.
And
I especially recommend Udine, actually, because I think almost 11, 12 years ago, I think maybe, Operation Tatar, until last year, that was the only Mongolian film ever that played in Udine, and that's a hilarious comedy. It's actually one of, I think, my favorite comedies ever. Operation Tatar. And then last year they all had a sales girl, so hopefully I know that paves their way here.
And that'll be a big... I think, talking about the problem, we were just saying there, with marketers not being sure how to market more sort of serious Mongolian films, and at least takes a bit of pressure off that, so they don't just have to be defined in this kind of exotic way, because you've got a wider range of content coming, and then people don't just associate Mongolian cinema with this weird image that the distributors lazily or for whatever reasons are pitching them as. So even if some of these other films are not getting that widely out there, it's just about gradually increasing the perception, the range of what actually comes from a country, so that people don't... Because most people wouldn't be... I figured there was lots of local productions getting made, but I think a lot of people would probably just assume, unfortunately, that it's only one kind of film being made, and then once people assume that, they're not as likely to go out their way to watch a film. Other films, even if they are very different to how they're being pitched. So I think the more stuff gets out there, even if it's just gradually smaller festivals, genre festivals, streamers, everything's a step in the right direction.
That just reminded me of something super, I think, important. Big part of the reason why these local films don't go out. I don't know this personally, but I listened from an interview with the producer about how lots of the filmmakers, especially younger ones, they don't the producers, they don't schedule any budget for what after the film is done. Basically, for marketing, there's very little money.
Marketing, distribution, everything.
The simplest thing, English subtitle, no one puts money aside for that, so it doesn't get made. So it becomes inaccessible to vast majority of people who are interested in that. And there's no Mongolian distribution company or sales agent, not a single one as far as I know, that's bringing films outside. Right, so that's difficult. Oh, actually, that was a lie. There is at least one Mongolian distribution company. I think it's just called Mongol Films or something. Yeah.
That's interesting because with speaking working production myself, that's so much more budget you need afterwards, not just for the subtitling, but then festival fees, shipping stuff around the world, marketing, advertising, distribute everything. So In some other countries as well, where I've been working on productions, where they're because of the like increased costs and the increased uncertainty outside of your own domestic market, then they're not really bothered about it, to be honest. So which I always find is a bit of a shame, but at the same time, you can understand, like, commercially, if you know you can make your money back, or your main source of revenue is domestic, then anything on top of that is both an extra cost and an extra risk, I guess. So yeah, it's interesting. But the genre stuff, especially horror stuff, I mean, action, I guess, to a slightly lesser extent, just because people in the West, I guess, are used to seeing like Hollywood action films with massive budgets and massive special effects and stuff. But horror travels anywhere in the world, and people are always very interested to see something, even just which is slightly culturally different or looks a little bit different. Even if it really actually is a pretty basic horror story. Horror fans are pretty open-minded, I think. I mean, not on purpose, but they just are, because horror fans watch pretty much anything. So.
Says the horror fan.
Well, speaking for myself, yes.
If Only I Could Hibernate is in UK cinemas right now, as we said before, released by Conic Films. That's it for the show. Don't forget, you can find all of our previous episodes on Apple, Amazon Music, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe now and you'll never miss an episode. But thanks to Amarsanaa for joining us for this chat.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you later. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.